Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of DABCC TV. We have a great episode for you guys today. We have Xangati back on the show, and they have a new solution out that's you guys are really going to like. In the past, they've had a solution for VMware and monitoring VMware servers and backend things and what have you, which is really a powerful solution. But they've taken some of that technology and the knowledge they've created over the years of developing that and moved it into the VDI space. So guys like me and a lot of you guys are very excited because they have a neat solution, and today we're going to show you that. So in particular, we have David Messina on the line, and David's going to show it to you. So David, thank you so much for taking the time to be with us.
Hey, Doug, thanks very much for inviting us back. And we're pretty excited.
Absolutely. And I'm excited too, because I've read about this, but I have not got a chance to see it yet. So other than just a few pictures that, been online, right? So I'm really excited to actually see the demo. So with no further ado, let's jump into it. David, but before we do that, we always have our first couple questions, So first question, who are you and what do you do over at Xangati?
Well, without getting philosophical, Doug, I'm David Messina, and I run product management and marketing for the company. So really, my job is to work with customers, and in particular, in this case, work with customers who are implementing VDI to figure out how to fashion a dashboard that really kind of suits their needs, and then work with our engineers to make sure that we deliver it. So that's really what I do mostly day in and day out.
Perfect. Okay, so in case people don't know who Xangati is, which they should, because you guys have a really great solution out there, but in case they don't, can you tell us just real briefly, who are you guys and what's the goal of the company? What are you doing over there?
So Xangati is a performance management software company, very focused on the virtualization space. And as you mentioned earlier, Doug, that we kind of initially came out of the server virtualization management ranks, and our focus in terms of what makes us unique is that we are able to see what we call VM to anything, which means we can see every virtual machine and its interactions, what applications, or in this case, VDI protocols, are those virtual machines generating, what does it interact with? And we can see across in a very unique fashion. So that's kind of where Xangati's got its branding from. And now we're applying it into the VDI sector. So those who are doing Xen Desktop or VM View as an example will start to hear a lot more about us.
Absolutely. Okay, so with no further ado, I'll turn it over to you and see the goods.
Excellent. Thanks, Doug. So again, just to be clear for those who are watching, only a couple slides here just to kind of set the table, but really going to use that as a way to kind of then build into the VDI dashboard. And again, the idea here is showing you the product because it speaks for itself. So one of the things I wanted to do, just I find these very useful, kind of set of 4 slides or so, to just kind of build upon things. But let's start just with the terminology, VDI, virtual desktop, and I tend to put the underscore there under infrastructure because there's some very significant changes that happen, right? So we take this, I won't necessarily call it a beautiful desktop, but we take this desktop here, discrete as it is, and end up in a VDI style environment. At the very least, we're tending to break things up into 3 components, right? A virtual machine that's a desktop running on a server in a data center, a client out there, and again, it could be an iPad, it could be a smartphone, it could be a zero client, what have you, and then I've got my image for my desktop and my files somewhere on some kind of shared store somewhere. So just in and of itself, that becomes complex. But what happens when, really the whole idea of this VDI stuff is it's incredibly dynamic. So I take those 3 components in the morning, logging in over my 3G iPad, if you will, into a VDI session in the morning where I might have a performance problem, might be entirely different than a zero client on the physical LAN in my corporate network. So trying to support that as the team who's running the VDI program, it can become very difficult. And then you throw into the equation that there really is a whole set of infrastructure components that make a big difference in terms of end user experience performing. You've got the virtual machines, you've got the servers and hosts that they run on. You have a whole bunch of IT servers that if they're not working, VDI users might not be happy. You've got to focus on the protocols, things like HDX from Citrix, PC/IP from VMware, and the physical network's quite a big deal, especially the network out to remote branches. So then throw into the equation again a lot of clients, and what happens is we find ourselves as Xangati coming across a whole slew of pretty unusual issues that have more to do with the infrastructure than they do with the quality of the software, let's say from Citrix or VMware. But it's very easy to pick on the software when an end user is having a performance issue. So here's the kinds of things that with the Xangati solution that looks across all the different silos affecting VDI, here are the kind of things that we've been able to find. And again, I think people have been able to read the list up there, so I'm not going to repeat it. And just quickly before we move into the demo, again, I alluded to earlier this idea. What makes us unique in the performance management space for this virtual environment is that we have the ability, as I said earlier, to take a look at the VM. Again, and this VM is a desktop. See all the things that it's interacting with, whether it's the protocols or the network or, again, the back-end servers. But again, depending on what the issue is, I might be able to pivot. So I might be able to put the protocol, like HDX, in the middle and track that protocol. Or I might be able to look at the network and look at the network. And again, this way, I'm acutely aware of anything that might be going awry that would be affecting end user experience. So having kind of given you the conceptual sense, I'm now going to toggle over to an actual system so you can see our new VDI dashboard. And Doug is aware of what the traditional system looked like. And what we've got here is now a way to take what was very broad in general, cutting across perhaps both server and desktop virtualization, and frame it in a pane of glass that a virtual desktop administrator would look at things. So immediately, some of the things that should strike you right off the bat are the fact that I've got the dashboard up here with a health index, and that is what it's doing is it's looking at the overall health of everything that's on this system. The clients that are accessing the desktops, the hosts that those desktops run on, and as well as over here to the right, perhaps some of the key infrastructure components like the backend app servers or IT servers like DHCP and DNS. And again, one of the things that makes Xangati very unique is you've got all this movement, this to-the-second movement that allows you to take a look at issues. So in fact, we're looking at our DVR scroll bar, which goes all the way back up to the course of an hour. And you can see at some point the health went from 100 down to 97. And when that health score changes, again, you could see that there was a shift from all greens to a specific yellow. In other words, there's a warning, if you will, an alert that one of the hosts that's running the VDI sessions is actually not running to expectation. And so when I double click on the alerts, I'm taking a look at the different recordings here. And I might take a look at, the alert. It was happening more recently, not actually at that real time. And I double click, and what you can see is that unlike traditional systems where I might just get an alert and it tells me something interesting, like a little notation, here I know specifically that this host, for this amount of time, about 15 minutes, had a CPU issue. And so when I double click on it, what I'm literally getting is a DVR style recording that shows me that the CPU load, because that's the thing in red, was much higher than expectations and what was normal. And the very cool thing about these recordings, these alert recordings, is I can also email those out to somebody else. So if the issue in the infrastructure, let's say it was a storage latency issue that the storage administrator needs to fix, well, I can email the storage admin a copy of that recording. He doesn't even have to be a user of the Xangati system, and he could see what was happening with those recordings. Probably just taking you one step further a little bit is one of the things that we are then able to do is break things down into different classes of elements that, again, affecting the overall VDI infrastructure. So you have the clients, these host to client network paths, and so on, are specifically there to help track network latency because, again, across wide area networks to the remote branch, if there's a high network latency, that can absolutely and fundamentally affect VDI user experience. I can look at the desktops. So as an example, if I double click on the desktop view here, I'm able to see in real time and do kind of quick sorts. I can look at my Citrix desktops and my VMware desktops, and I can do a double sort and find who's the most aggressive user or CPU or memory or something like that. And if I double click now on this specific desktop, you can see I'm looking at this VMware desktop. I can see its interaction on the network. I can see that it's interacting with a specific client. And one of the things that's very cool about the Xangati system is I can zoom in real time and see an end-to-end VDI session conversation. And again, this is something that's entirely unique to Xangati. So as it starts to render, again, you're seeing my desktop talking to this view client. I can see that all the traffic that's being generated. I can see the interaction, and of course, in this case, I'm looking at the VDI protocol, which is the PC/IP protocol. And again, each and every one of the views, if you look over here, I've got a thing called My Favorites, and My Favorites includes this specific desktop that I'm looking at. It includes the PC/IP protocol. I'm looking at a specific host that's running both Xen desktop virtual machines. And again, I can even focus in on, maybe an end-to-end conversation like I'm doing here between this desktop and clients. And by simply pressing this add to favorites button here, oops, I double clicked on that. It's now up and running there. And each one of these views effectively is a TV channel that I'm running, again, all with the DVR scroll bar attached to it. So all in all, the power of the solution now is that we're getting much more contextual for the administrator. Again, looking at all the different moving parts that are can and will oftentimes affect user experience. So clients and the desktops, the hosts, and so on. And then I can track these things live. I can let the system tell me specifically when there's an issue by letting me know that the health index has changed. I will get an email about that change. I will get an alert recording that goes along with that email. And again, we saw a specific host where the CPU was riding high. That was therefore affecting end user experience. And then lastly, we have a great model under our recordings tab where, if there's a specific end user that has a kind of issue, they can also trigger some kind of recordings on the Xangati system, and those will show up. I don't think we have any unhappy users today, but we have this idea of what we call a visual trouble ticket, where when a user starts having a performance issue, that will trigger a bunch of performance metrics that allow us to understand, hey, was he driving too much YouTube traffic that was then driving too much VDI protocol traffic that was then clogging his remote access VPN, as an example. So what you're getting with Xangati and this VDI dashboard that's entirely unique is a truly real-time system. Again, every view, as you see, has that DVR scroll bar attached to it. The proactive ability to look at health without having to manually set thresholds. The system's going and doing that for you. And then lastly, the piece that we're looking not just within the VDI, looking at the desktops and the clients, but looking at all the key infrastructure pieces, the network, the storage, the physical network, the protocols themselves, to make sure that all that is working, because if it's not, your end users are going to complain. And ultimately, this is a very big deal in terms of making end users happy and happy with their early POCs and pilots, and allowing you to scale up with great confidence and comfort for the implementations. So really, Doug, that's the demo.
Oh, very cool. This looks really promising. So what type of environments would see the best value from a solution like this, David? And at the same point, what point in the process and at what point in the deployment process would you bring a technology like this into the fold?
Well, Doug, the VDI dashboard in and of itself is really great for customers who are trying to scale up their deployments, right? So what we find is there tends to be a kind of a ceiling right now where you get to kind of about 50 users, and oftentimes you see those implementations stuck with performance issues that again have nothing to do with Zen Desktop or VMware View. It's again broader infrastructure issues. So we recommend in particular for people who are trying to quickly scale from 50 to 150 to 1,000 users to get the Xangati solution in, because it's going to be their very big friend in terms of scaling up their deployments and having very happy, high customer satisfaction ratings. Certainly, we can be involved even early in the process for assessments, but where we're finding the greatest traction is for the people who really want to scale up their implementations, who've made a strategic commitment to VDI for compliance reasons or productivity reasons, like in a healthcare environment.
Makes sense. Makes sense. I know this product is you just released it. It's just now out, but maybe do you have any customer success stories? Maybe someone from beta or anyone out there that's using it and uniquely.
Yeah, we have some great stories. In some ways, names held to protect the innocent. But I was just on with a customer today that, believe it or not, what was bogging down their desktops, and they were able to use the visual trouble ticket again, where the end user presses a record button. But every end user that they found was lagging in performance was generating and receiving something like 30 meg of net BIOS out of their desktops. And when we looked into the details, it was because of a semantic network-based antivirus set of updates that were going on. So they were never aware of this issue. This was a hospital environment, where their doctors were going through the roof in terms of disappointment around their VDI implementation, and we were able to find something immediately. Another great case study was we found a network-based, network-attached storage implementation where there were backups that the storage admins were running in the middle of the day that were affecting. This was a big kind of industrial manufacturing firm where their VDI implementation was stalled because of backups that should not have been happening in the middle of the day.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm really excited and really happy you guys brought out a VDI solution because, this is what you do on the server side. And when I would always look at it on the server side, I'd say to myself, I'm not a server guy, I'm a desktop guy. And boy, this would be neat if I can see, all the specific things related to these desktops. And of course, from the server perspective, you can, right? A little bit, but not like what you're bringing to market with this product. So this is neat stuff.
No, thank you.
Now, I have a couple more questions real quick, if you don't mind.
Sure.
I love demos. You guys bring these fancy demos to me on DABCC TV, and I always have to ask, what does it take to get to this point? You know what I mean? So we're looking at the admin console. What did it take to actually set up the Xangati solution?
Well, you bring up a great question, and somebody that you've had on before on DABCC TV, a guy named Nathaniel Iverson, has a bunch of great install videos that are up on YouTube for us. And literally to get this up and running, for a one host environment is going to take you well under an hour. And then we have this great way to install. We have a special virtual machine that sits on a host. And that can be installed through VMware vCenter automatically. So you're talking really no more than an hour, maybe an hour and a half work for many of the implementations that we're dealing with. And it's so easy that what we do is we've now got an offer to allow you to try the software by contacting us through the web. And again, installation, we've got YouTube videos that kind of run through that process. It's that easy.
Very cool. Very cool. What are the requirements? VMware, obviously, do you guys plan on maybe some XenServer or Hyper-V in the future?
Yeah.
Are there any agents out there? What are the requirements?
Great question. So right now on the back end, we are still optimized for ESX, but in terms of VDI, Zen Desktop, VMware View, really any VDI kind of implementation that either runs with ESX on the back end, or maybe you've got kind of a ESX in an environment. But we are working obviously with Citrix to focus on doing some implementation and tighter integration with XenServer. Hyper-V is a little bit further out on the horizon. We don't see too many of those implementations yet, but I know the market penetration is certainly increasing. So that's a good question.
Yeah.
And in terms of your question about agents, again, a very good point. What makes us unique is that there are no requirements for a guest agent here, right? So our implementation is some lightweight virtual machines, a slightly heavier weight version that renders the dashboard and all that, and another version that is sits at the host level, but no requirement to have a guest agent per virtual desktop, which is candidly is what you see from most of the solutions that are out there in the market today.
You bet. You bet. Yeah, yeah. On the XenServer side, I actually was talking to, I want to say Gardner, and they said that something like 30% of the Xen desktop deployments, 30 or 40% are now being deployed on XenServer, which really blew my mind. I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe it wasn't higher on the Hyper-V side, because I know Citrix is really pushing the Hyper-V stuff, but 30, 40% of Xen desktop deployments going on XenServer is a pretty outstanding number. So
yeah, no, it's certainly on the rise, that's for sure. And today out the gate, for the customers in particular who've got VMware on the back end and Xen desktop, we've got a absolutely great solution for them.
Absolutely.
And it's worth noting that it's very complementary to Citrix has this really great product called Desktop Director, which really focuses it on the desktop level. And you can think of the Xangati piece as the complement, looking at the health of everything that ultimately is supporting the desktop experience.
You bet, you bet. Now, within this dashboard, I see things like ICA bitrate and RDP bitrate, and some stuff that's specific to Citrix and RDP. And those are also server-based computing solutions, for example, XenApp and then remote desktop services, right? Would this could I point this to those servers also and maybe not get all the benefit, but a little bit? So if I buy this for my VDI, I can also sort of point it towards my XenApp too?
Yeah, you could certainly add that to the equation. The system effectively, you effectively get to decide what sits in your dashboard. So, if you wanted to add some, virtual machines that were more like virtualized XenApp virtual machines, you could certainly track those within the system. So we don't have precognition in terms of what you think is most important, and that's the idea of these dashboards. That each one of these buckets, you can decide what fits in there appropriately. So yeah, we could certainly either maybe at this desktop level, or if you want to, if you got a combination of Xen desktop and XenApp for kind of app streaming, you can maybe add those to your app servers for sure.
Yeah.
No doubt.
Yeah, you'll find that. Most of the Xen desktop deployments also have XenApp in them. In fact, and there's a lot more XenApp than there is anything else out there.
That is very true.
Absolutely. And this is, you can get a lot of great information off that or out of this for your XenApp environments. So that being said, you guys have a promotion coming out called what do you call it? The Great VDI Dashboard Giveaway. What is this? Can you talk about that real quick?
Yeah, let's get to that.
Got a slide for that too. So
yes, we do. There we are. It was done with great effort. So the VDI Dashboard Giveaway. The idea is that effectively for this quarter, so Q2 here of 2011, we're going to basically be offering for anybody who to enter. Effectively, you have to try out our trial software for the VDI dashboard, which you can make a request for off our website www.xangati.com, and then once a month we'll pick a winner to basically get a full license to support 100 desktops. So for kind of a free offering, if you will, for taking a look at the software. Again, we'll pick one user a month who's done that, got it installed, and the idea behind that is to encourage people to take a look, reward somebody with success with a free offering, and again encourage people to kind of take the extra step beyond just watching this episode here to see how the solution is going to work to help them scale up their implementations. And there's more details on the overall giveaway up on the website.
Absolutely, absolutely. And this, thank you so much, David, for your time today. I think we'll go ahead and conclude this, but this is a really neat solution you guys have. Like I said, I was excited about what you did on the server side, and I always sort of wanted that a little bit more focused on the desktop side because that's the world I live in, right? And of course, from the selfishness that I have, I want it in my world. So I'm glad that you guys did that. And so on that note, thank you so much for your time today. And guys out there listening, if you guys are interested in this, and if you do VDI, definitely, and if it's, if you're hosting those desktops on VMware, go ahead and download the trial and give this thing a shot, because even if you're not interested in buying it, you can get a little a free trial and see a lot of information, glean a lot of information about your environment. And then, of course, you can go back to your bosses and say, hey, look at what we got. Now we need to find the budget for it. So that always works. So again, David, thank you so much for your time today. I truly appreciate it.
Hey, thanks so much, Doug.
Okie dokie.